In this episode, you'll learn about a popular podcasting app that is now allowing podcasters to run paid promotion to grow their podcasts. Let's dive in. In a world where ad costs are continually rising and prospects are getting more and more skeptical about who they can trust, how can you reach new people in a way that's authentic and effective? A place where you can build trust at scale and convert skeptical prospects into raving fans and clients. Hey, my name is Luis Diaz, and you're listening to the Podcast Domination Show, the place for entrepreneurs and businesses that want to know how to build a podcast that helps them grow their business, get more clients, and build their brand. I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me. What's going on, my friend? Welcome back to the Podcast Domination Show, or welcome to the show for the first time. If you don't know, this is the show that you go to when you want to launch your podcast and then grow it into the hundreds of thousands and millions of listeners. I'm Luis Diaz, your host, and I'm going to do my best to be your guide on that journey. And today I've got one small but important tip and announcement for you that's going to help you grow your podcast. So by far, hands down, the absolute number one question I get on a daily basis from my Facebook group, the Podcasters Inner Circle, which is a free Facebook group where you can go to learn how to grow your podcast using all the tools and tips we have in there. And then through our clients, through our prospects that come out, reach out to us, through pretty much everyone I know with a podcast, the number one question is, how do I grow my audience? How do I get more listeners? How do I acquire new listeners, new blood into my fan base? And there's a million and one ways to skin this cat, theoretically. And I want to share with you a new place that you can use paid advertising that's coming soon. I actually just sent an email to the people over there to get my podcast to actually test it so I can give you guys some hard results with a small ad budget and give you guys some more feedback on how it went for me. So hopefully that'll be coming out later on. But today, I'm just going to share with you some of the details that they have on their website and what app specifically I am talking about. So the app you may or may not have heard is Podcast Addict. So Podcast Addict. And this is a very, very popular app that's in the Apple Store. It's also in the Google Android Store. And a lot of people use this. I'm talking millions of people use this app. I believe it was one of the top 10 rated most used apps for podcast listeners. So it is a place that a lot of people, potentially hundreds of thousands and millions of people go. And they recently announced, and I'm trying to see when this was posted, not too long ago on their Twitter account, that they're going to be taking paid promotion. So they start to open up two kinds of spots for paid promotion. And before I get into that, talk about the details here, I want to step back and say this is important because discovery is probably podcasters' number one problem. Most people will argue. I would also argue that it's also creativity. Most people or podcasters lack creativity. It's why their show doesn't grow. I talk about this with my clients all the time. You need to get creative. You need to think outside the box if you want to grow your podcast, because if you follow the status quo, it's going to be hard to stand out from everyone else. So besides creativity, before we go down another rabbit hole here, the number one thing is discoverability. How can people discover your podcast? And what Podcast Addict is doing here is giving people another place to put money towards podcast growth. It's hard to grow a podcast, no lie, no doubt about it. It can be a full-time job. It can be a job you have to hire a new position for. And I'm curious here for people too who are listening. What I want you to do, if you have a question or if you have experience running ads other places, I'd love to hear about them. Just email me, Luis, Luis, at podcastdomination.co, not .com, .co. And I'd love to hear what you've done and talk with you. But to get back to here, this is super important because this gives people another place to put money into podcast growth that is not having them spam a million Facebook groups or not having them post on their personal page or post on their LinkedIn or post on their Instagram a bunch of times. Granted, you can do that stuff, but it's not very effective. And in the program, the Podcast Launch Formula, one of the modules I actually talk about here is how that stuff, posting on social media, is mainly for awareness. It's not for engagement. It's great to let people know that you're out there, but it's not going to convert many people. Let's just be honest here. So this is important because if you have this avenue and you can get in front of the right people, the right listeners, the right potential listeners who aren't aware of your show and that it even exists, or that even you exist or your company exists, then my friends, this can open up new profit centers. This can open up new ways for you to get affiliates, for you to get your offers in front of people. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner who has a podcast, I want you to pay attention because this is super important. So what Podcast Addict is doing is they're opening up their platform for 2 specific types of placements, according to this article, and I'll link it below. But the first one is going to be at the top of the screen of your app, and they have a screenshot of an iPhone app. You've got like the little time. You can tell it's an iPhone, or actually, sorry, it's an Android, because you got the time here. You got the battery percentage on the right-hand side at the top. You've got a screenshot of the app and all these different podcasts they've got in their app, and it has a picture of like what a sponsored app would look like. So they're opening up 2 kinds of placements. The first one's going to be at the top of the screen, like I said, and it's basically going to have a little sponsored, the word sponsored in the bottom right-hand corner. And it's going to be your artwork, apparently from what it looks like on this picture, and then also the name of your podcast, and then like 4 lines of text that just kind of go over the top, kind of like high level what your podcast is about, right? Essentially your podcast description. So that's the first thing. So just know the first one is going to be at the top of the banner, and it's going to have a little sponsored tag on the right-hand side of it too. The second one is going to be much more cheaper. So apparently they're saying that top one is going to be more expensive. I don't know how much money they haven't given us any ranges. And the second one's going to be a lot cheaper, and it's going to be displayed at the top of a specific category when the user tries to find the most popular podcast in that category. So I think of this like Google search results. Like when you type something in on Google, you have like the sponsored ads first, and then you have the top ranking results for the most popular searches, right? So that's what I think they're doing. Apparently that's what it looks like from this article. And from what it looks like, it can start from as low as $25 for some languages and categories. So that's less than $1 a day for a month. So let's see if I can pull off anything else here that's really, really important. They will be flagged, like I was saying before, they will be flagged as sponsored content. So it's not like it's going to act like it's a popular podcast. They're going to make sure people know it's sponsored stuff. And I quote here, the cost for a full month and will depend on podcast language and category. It will start as low as $25 for some languages and categories, parentheses, less than $1 per day, end quote. So right now, at the time I'm recording this, mid-May, the cost will be at least 50% down compared to the future costs. Hence why I jumped on it early. I want to share it with you guys. And apparently, in terms of analytics, you'll also have some stats such as number of impressions, number of taps, as well as the number of subscriptions generated by the ads. So some pretty good stats there. I think the most important one, which is hard to find in a lot of other platforms I've advertised on, is the number of subscriptions that you gain from it. I know Overcast has a feature for this, but other ones may or may not have it. So subscriptions gained is super important, and definitely if you're someone who has advertisers or looking to get advertising dollars, you need to be able to grow your podcast and to demand higher ad spend if you can convert these listeners into customers for that company. So there you have it, my friends. Short and sweet. Podcast Addict is a new player on the block, apparently, when it comes to paid ads. Make sure you let me know what your thoughts are. Lewis at podcastdomination.co. And stick around. I've got a free special offer to help you grow your podcast after this episode. So without further ado, I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Hey, really quick, if you wanted to get daily emails to help you grow your podcast and your profits from your podcast, then you're going to love my daily email list called the Daily Growth Tip. It's basically a small email I send out every single day to help you do just that, either grow your podcast or grow the profits from your podcasting endeavors. So I've got a lot of great reviews from it so far from people who are on the list, and I'm sure you will find at least one thing in there that you'll be able to use right away. So if you want to check that out, then all you have to do is text the word podcasting to 1-646-495-9867. I know that's a mouthful, guys, so don't do it if you're driving. But again, the number is 1-646-495-9867. And the word to text is podcasting. And that number, as well as the keyword podcasting, will be in the show notes. So if you're on an Apple device, all you have to do is swipe up with your finger and the show notes will be there. And you'll be able to get all that information and get on the list that way as well. So thanks again, my friend. Talk soon.